Hello, and I think all of you know me, but just to um, basically give a little background, I am a data person, and in the last few years, I have become increasingly interested in how AI has been kind of behind the scenes changing businesses for over, I don't know, 20 years at this point, 30, but it only came into the limelight um, less than, well, a year and a half ago with the growth of the chat GPTs. And suddenly everybody was talking AI, even though a lot of the AI is embedded in what we do all the time. I mean, if you use Alexa or Siri, it's a version of the AI, a more basic version, but that's what it does. Oh, what's the weather? Let me check for you. So one of the things that I'm hoping that we cover in this workshop, and please know, as a teacher, I want to always teach, but instead, I think the better approach to this will be as a workshop to help all of us figure out the problems that either we're trying to solve or that we know that our clients are trying to solve. Because some of us are, in businesses where we help clients solve these issues for themselves, right? So um, let's start. What is your problem? Right? Now, majority of you are in fields where you ask this question to your clients all the time. But take a step back. Maybe let's just use this hour as something that we can grow ourselves, even if it's not with the use of AI, but good old-fashioned human intelligence, right? But write down the biggest problem that you're facing. You're welcome to use the chat so that we can discuss it later. But what is your problem? Like, there's a reason you're here. And if your answer is because you love me so much, then thank you. But more than that, if it is, something where you can use this hour to sort out and solve a problem that you're already facing, well, more power to all of us, right? Um, so what is the biggest problem that you or your company is facing?
I'm the problem.
You are the problem? Well,
No,
that's
I'm
an
not.
easy fix, Ranveer.
Well, jokes aside, as business owners, that's a very great question, and Kruti, always a pleasure. I know we exchange messages and we've had a conversation. I really genuinely love what you're doing because as technology is changing in AI, like the other day I paid to have a logo made and then not realizing I could have upgraded my chat GPT account and have a logo creator for 19.99 a month. Not that it's not a business write-off or anything, because as business owners, you got to spend money to make money, and that's something sometimes you have to get into that mindset. But the idea is like, how do you kind of get out of your own way to your own path of success? So the reason why I say that sometimes we're the problem is maybe we're doing way too much action. We become an action junkie where we're like chasing clients and trying to close the deals, and they just get irritated, annoyed, and they block you. It happens all the time. Trust me, I'm pretty sure some folks experience it on this call, but that's my 2 cents. But hey, what do I know? So
You know enough to know that you need to think about it. So that's a win right there. Um, but if I asked you to share the rest of the people here, what is the biggest problem? And the answer cannot be yourself because yes,
yeah,
overthinking
no.
the overthinking is a definite problem that all of us face. But in
you
terms of
know,
something that's solvable,
actually I was just being silly, but to your point, the challenge, I guess, and again, it's a multiple things and caliber, right? Okay, so COVID happened. Okay, fine. The whole work from home. Okay, corporate America was like, okay, everybody can work from home now. Now everybody come back in an office, or we're going to let you off. I mean, it's happening as we speak, but a lot bigger than that. So everybody got used to working home. Okay, now we're no longer going events. We're working out of our pajamas. We sort of moved away from the office culture of like meeting people face to face. So remember, as humans, we need that interaction because being in a Zoom call is a slightly different experience than let's say I were to meet you face to face, Kruti, or any of the business owners that are on this call, right? It's just different. I don't know how to explain it in words. It's to one's experience, right? So that's one challenge, right? Like, how do you genuinely meet somebody? I'm not saying you have to read them, but you just, especially if it's a potential client, and what can you do to solve some of their challenges, problems? That's number one. Number two is, well, how do I put myself out there? Marketing, lead generation, like, and it's interesting what you're doing, especially with AI and providing that guidance, right? But the idea is that, especially when I started my business in August 2020, like, I couldn't go to conferences, I couldn't touch my wife, no, jokes aside. But the idea is, like, obviously it was unfortunate what happened 3.5 years later, here we are. Right. So how do you go to the new norm of, and and in-person events are happening, but it's not the same. It's like just think these events are just trying to sell their services. They're just trying to sell the seller, right? Or especially if you're trying to gain some business, right? So, the idea is, like, even going to these cybersecurity conferences, for example, which is my background, right? And going to these IT conference, like, the same people, different places, different spaces. I get it. But how do you sort of tap into a different market that may be to your game? Again, I might be a little all over the place, but just sharing with you some of my experience and feedback.
No, that's excellent. You're right. There are certain things that are within our control and certain things that are not. And they can both simultaneously contribute to what problem we are facing. Anybody else?
This is Ketan. Just to piggyback off Ranbir's what you said. So I'd second what you say. Just the changes, right? How do you handle the changes? The world is so fast paced, right? With AI, technology, cyber, and then with the pandemic, the whole work environment change, right? And now compliance on top of it, right? So regulations and compliance, and there's no standard, right? So the whole entire world has changed, and on top of it, you got to make money. And how do you how do you learn? How do you keep up with the changes? I mean, my frustration is how do you keep up with the changes, and how do you know it's you go down a path, and it's the right path, and the learning and the resources and the money and the time that you spend doing it, how do you figure it all out?
So, anybody else?
I threw something in the chat, Kruti. You're very familiar with me, and when I start talking, I kind of take over, so I didn't want to do that to your workshop.
I'm counting on it. Okay.
So if you'll see my comment in the chat.
Okay. Utilize and creative content. Okay. Raise a brand above a noisy market, increase sales, deal the deal pipeline, biz dev. Okay, so this is awesome.
I can chime in. So, some of the problems, which is kind of, in the chat as well, there is a lot of noise. And I'm also, like you, in the realm of AI and understanding where that applies in the business and how to benefit from that. But there is a lot of noise. And as a business owners, we want to solve the problems, but it's very hard to be heard over all the noise that is generated. Whether, AI and, everybody's talking, either, we have so much data, but they don't know what to do with that. And hopefully you can, help us untangle that. And then you have a tool like AI to kind of give you some better knowledge of the data and analyze it in a different way. It's also very interesting problem because you need to know where to apply it.
Here's a natural fuzzy sock.
Say again?
Jordan, did you say something? Sorry.
No, you're good. Sorry, I came off mute there.
It's okay.
So, those are many good topics that I think, Kruti, you can lead us on.
I'm gonna try, because I
Absolutely.
think that what you said is very important. When I look at these problems, the first question, as somebody who, looks at businesses from the forest standpoint instead of the tree standpoint, is to ask the question, why have you been unable to solve it? Like Ranbir and Ketan pointed out before, there are certain things that are outside our control, and we know those. But that is what I think, in terms of planning, in terms of organizing, in terms of putting things in order, it is important to identify which things are beyond our control and to acknowledge them officially. Like the whole COVID pandemic, that was outside our control. Not being able to meet with potential clients one-on-one, that was outside our control. But thanks to digitization, and technology, we found ways to go get around those problems. So sometimes writing down exactly what the problems are, what portion of the problem is beyond your control, can help you to start creatively thinking about the alternatives for that. Like Ranveer said earlier, sorry to pick on you, but you got a logo made. And then you realize you could have just gotten $20 a month ChatGPT and use it for a million other things alongside getting a free logo, right? That was designed. Now, I'm not saying what you did was wrong, but what you learn from that is, if you had known that that is something that you needed to do and you had it down on paper, then you might have had the opportunity to take a step back and consider alternatives before jumping into what you've always traditionally done. So the biggest thing with the challenges that we are all facing right now with the disruption from AI is that we are all going to need to step back and reposition and rethink how we have always solved a given problem, right? What used to be, for a lot of us, when we look at how business development has worked, we followed as mankind, as people in business, we followed certain patterns for over 150 years. But if you then take a step back and start looking at it, with every technological improvement, we've made the changes, we have adapted to those changes. And 30 years ago, nobody had websites. I guarantee you that every single person here right now who is either running a business or working for a business has a website that they're referring to, right? It used to be where I remember, not going to date myself, but I remember learning basic scripting code for creating websites back in the 90s. And it was mind-boggling because there was nobody else out there doing it. Similarly, when the apps on Apple Store started in like late 2000s, again, I was on the forefront of it. I was one of the few people who got their app approved in 3 days because the supply was really, really, narrow at the time. But if every single time this has happened, it has required rethinking why it is a problem that I'm unable to solve, or what resources I need to revisit. I might think that I might need a logo designer, but what are the alternatives? I'll let you in on a big secret. I hate taking photographs. I mean, it's just not me. Sometime back, one of my LinkedIn network folks shared like this AI tool where all I had to do was take 6 to 8 pictures of myself, in slightly different positions and places with looking at the camera, and they gave me 150 pictures back, which were all usable. There were about 10 of them that looked like actresses from Bollywood, which I deleted because it was AI driven. But the fact is, with my hesitation of going to get formal headshots taken, or finding somebody who would do it and trusting them to do it right and waiting for 5 days, I was able to take a chance for $30 and went, oh, this is good enough, right? So this kind of increase in productivity with a lowered cost. And when I say cost, I'm not only talking about the dollar value. I'm talking about cost in terms of my time, my reluctance, my hesitations, and all of that, right? So going back to the problems that we've mentioned for either ourselves or for our customers, one of the things that we need to revisit in this disruptive environment is, what is our vision? What is our company's vision? What is our own vision of ourselves as a part of that company? if we are the leader, we are a part of the leadership, or we are an employee, right? The funny thing about revisiting what we thought about ourselves more consciously is that we will realize where some of the controllable problems or controllable issues that are driving our problems come from within us, right? 30 years ago, making 200 phone calls, cold calls per day for a sales rep would be considered to be a mind-blowingly productive day. It won't happen now because people don't answer their calls. So what other alternative creativeness needs to be brought up in order for that salesperson to have a clearer vision of what they need to be doing, right? I mean, again, some of this stuff you already know. I'm just putting it in the context of AI because I'm just connecting those dots, right? So always do the Goldilocks test. Write out your vision. If you want, you're welcome to write out your vision. I'll give you a minute to think about it. What is your vision in the context of your role within your company? And you can put it in the chat. Go ahead. Or like David, you're welcome to please share it with the rest of us.
I love this discussion, and my background may be a little different than a lot of you in that I'm not grounded in technology. I'm relatively new to this space, and I'm deeply immersed in AI, trying to catch up to all of you right now. But I spent a lot of time in management consulting and have had the opportunity to see the smart things and the not so smart things that a lot of other companies have made over time. And I keep seeing a pattern that repeats that a lot of actually pretty sophisticated business leaders make. And that's that they have a thought process, a strategy, or a vision that's internally focused in their business or their organization. And over time, it can become detached from their customers, their clients, other stakeholders, and a clear understanding of how they're creating value for those stakeholders in a differentiated way. And part of what really excites me about AI and technology right now is that it seems that we're on a sort of a perfect storm environment this year with all of the noise that you folks have referenced. I think business leaders all over the place are really struggling to say, what does this AI stuff mean? What does it mean for my business? What does it mean for my customers? What does it mean for my investors? And I think one of the opportunities, and I don't have perfect answers, I'm still trying to sort through all this myself every day. But I think we're starting to see a lot of shiny objects. Businesses are putting apps out there and promoting use cases. And it reminds me of those internally focused discussions that business leaders have about what they're doing. They're detached from customers, they're detached from clients. And I think it's both a risk and an opportunity. And I think one of the opportunities is to be the translators and help business leaders and technologists understand the noise. Here's what's out there, but let's reframe the conversation. Let's talk about your business model. Let's talk about your customers. How do current technologies, AI or otherwise, enable your strategy? Is it simply just to take out cost and increase efficiency and margins? Or is there something else that we can or should be doing that helps us to differentiate our product or our service vis-a-vis our competitors? And I think as consultants and advisors, we also have to recognize that whoever it is that we're talking to, they view this stuff through a lens of their own. If you're talking to a board of directors, they have a lens of governance and oversight and guardrails and risk and returns. If you're talking to someone that owns a P&L or is running a business, They're thinking about returns and what it costs and what's the roadway and the roadmap for implementation. How does this let me win in the marketplace vis-a-vis our competitors? If you're talking to a function head, a head of HR, a general counsel, a CFO or a CTO, they're going to have their own lens and their own set of issues with AI. And all of those things are opportunities for us as advisors, consultants, business owners, because a lot of people, just in my experience anyway, don't have the innate ability to sort the noise and map it back to their own business strategy, their own operations, their own IT efforts. So anyway, that's my spin on a lot of this. I'm still sorting through it. It's what gets me up in the morning and makes me drink 6 cups of coffee. I love it. I think it's a huge opportunity for all of us. I'll shut up.
No, no, that was very, very insightful because that it actually is exactly, you know, how does your vision align with the structure of your company? I mean, it might be easy for me to say, you know what, I would like to grow my revenues for my little analytics Texas by 300% in this year. But I have to take into account, what do I have in the structure of my company that would enable me to do that? How is the data flowing, even if it's just a very small company, how is the data flowing within, you know, the various aspects that I'm covering? Am I spreading myself too thin? Am I making sure that if I'm writing a set of codes and instructions for one client, that I'm keeping it generic enough that I can basically reuse portions of it rather than always having to build from scratch, right? So we hear this word scaling all the time, but what are we scaling is impossible to identify unless we know what our vision is and how that vision attaches or goes in with our problem. So we need to check first, again, revisit the problem in the context of the disruption that we are facing, or it's AI right now, but it could be anything. And for every time we look at our vision, we need to check for the flows of information, right? I cannot blame my assistant for not getting something done if there is no flow of information going from me to them, right? Cheyenne, did you say something? I'm sorry. So if anybody else wants to share your vision or how, where it fits in the Goldilocks test.
I can jump in if that's okay.
Sure.
Yes, so you know, AI, right? Let's be frank here, it's been around for like 5 or 6 decades, or since computers have come into existence, because it comes down to data analytics, you know, basically inputs and outputs, right? Like you put in something and it gives you a response, right? I think you know, it goes back to the cloud days, like, you know, how cloud was sold to the federal sector and to the private sector, and everybody was becoming cloud. But in reality, it's still on physical servers, AWS, owned by AWS, Amazon, or Google, right? It's still on physical equipment. There's still, you know, so again, the idea is that, okay, well, you know, as we advance into technologies, you know, how to piggyback, let's say, off AI in providing us guidance or reference or improvements, right? It's really helped me understand from my perspective that especially if you're trying to, you know, learn something new or get into the industry, right? You know, if you think about it, yes, technology advances. I mean, we have this device is like a, you know, if you go back in the 50s, a computer was as big as a room that was like 20 by 30 or something like that. It was just insane, right? Versus now on a mini device, and now Musk coming up with some type of chip in your brain. But jokes aside, it's like, you know, we have to say, okay, where can we go as far as going to the growth and adapting to technology, right? Like the other day I went to a conference, this was Carosoft, right? I don't know if you guys heard of it, but they had all high level folks from federal agencies talking about AI, but to me, it just sounded like fluff. And I'm not trying to be mean, but it was just like, if you don't know what you don't know, that you're talking about a topic where people are scared of it or thinking that because behind the code is a human, unless we get to a point where you can have code, self-code, then we have bigger problems than Terminator, Skynet. I'm dating myself here, right? So just sharing with you based on my, and it just kind of frustrates me because in the, let's say, startup and cloud sector, again, not hopefully not offending anybody here, is that the monopoly money and the serious funding, and us like business owners, small business owners here are just trying to make little scraplings here just to give guidance. I don't know, it's just my 2 cents. So
That's great. Jolan, you had something to say?
Yeah, just picking from what where NB left, some interesting insights. And it's good to be here. Thank you, Dr. Reddy, for the opportunity. So, given my technology and sales background, yeah, I could quite relate to what Ranbir mentioned about the cloud scenario now coming to AI, the change of times. But the skepticism, there is always a kind of a doubt in the mind of the IT and the management of the business owners that in the cloud days it was, oh, if we give away all our data to the cloud servers, which are not residing in our IT rooms in front of our eyes, then is going to be safe or not? And now um, the AI thing has similar but a little different questions, okay, so if we are going to expose our data to a trusted algorithm, which is residing over a cloud, over some third-party server, and that server is going to process and run through their algorithm through our data and give us back some interesting insights. Are we safe enough? And what is our data protection, data privacy, how is going to be governed? That's the thing I want to highlight. Thank you.
Thank you, Jolan. Ariana? You're in.
Yeah, I'm muted. I wanted to go back to actually data because it's so easy to kind of digress into the technology. Because at the end of the day, every company has got a lot of data, whether you call Excel spreadsheet, email, your documents, basic stuff, that's still data. And often what companies are struggling with, I think it's more how to manage that data and how to utilize, your data sources to execute your job faster. So it's really not so much, I'm not trying to advocate AI or, cloud, going to the cloud. None of these things matter until we go back to the problem. What problem are we solving? What is the real bottleneck in the company? And kind of going back what David said, from company perspective, what is the main reason for the company to exist? What is the product? Who are the customers? These are some fundamental questions which often are in a opposite direction from people who are in technology and building technology and thinking this is the shiny object we need to use.
Yep.
And it will be interesting to see how to marry the two to really truly move that organization forward. That's my 2 cents.
I'm gonna take that opportunity to move to this. Because we are talking about AI, we're talking about data, and it's often that people are confusing the two things because they are simultaneously going, one is dependent on the other. And I know that we've heard this all the time, that AI is dependent on data science. What we don't hear often enough anymore, and it's important, is that the way data science itself is progressing, it's going to become more and more reliant on AI as time goes by. So it's not just a question of what do I do with collecting data and building the model. It's also a question of what data can I collect that I haven't considered before that AI enables me to do. Again, when I started learning about data science and statistics, I remember I had a TI calculator. I don't have it anymore. I've asked my parents to keep it.
I'll send you one.
No. It's in safekeeping. I got it in the 80s, and it was a TI calculator which allowed one to run regressions on it. Yes.
That was the
Yes.
smartphone of the day, right? Remember when you could I don't know if you played games on it, like, remember Tetris and the
And you
farm
could enter
games.
in Y values and you could run a bivariate regression on a calculator for up to 25 observations. And that was considered to be mind blowing.
That's beautiful.
And I think my phone has a calculator that can do things that are better than that now. But the point is, we don't realize that when technology grows, data science has to grow with it, right? Large language models, well, what we call machine learning now, it's been going on for years. It's just that the machines had limited capacity, so there was a limited ability to save, collect, and analyze data. I mean, for those of you who have a math background, consider how much is involved in terms of a matrix inversion, right? Like a 4x4 matrix, if you want to invert it, is going to require a lot more space than normal people can imagine. But a data scientist can tell you, oh yeah, you know what? You have 5,000 observations and 400 columns. That stuff's going to take time, right? But what changed with the way technology grows is that time went down. It's still the same complex operation. It's just done faster. So that is the biggest thing that we need to consider when we take into account what AI is or what AI is capable of. So when you think of the word AI, like what do you think of? Majority of the people that I talk to will tell me ChatGPT. But it goes so much beyond that. Or if somebody has a little bit of a background, you'll say, oh yeah, machine learning. But my favorite is the answer that was given to me by my 11-year-old. When I asked him what AI means to him, he said, well, it just helps us make sense of data. And I was like, oh my God, you're my child, right? But
Right.
But that's the simplest explanation. It helps us make sense of data, and data helps us make sense of AI. It's the perfect marriage, right? And if you know what your data is, or if you know what type of data you have or might have the potential of having, it helps you to figure out which tools are going to help you in AI, right? Because if I asked you, do you have some AI tools that you have in mind right now? I was talking with somebody the other day and they were like, well, I'm thinking about, I need a data lake for this and I need to contact Databricks for this. And after I actually asked them what they wanted, like, here's the inputs that we want to put in, and this is what we want our clients to be able to see. I'm like, you need a solution. You don't need Databricks and data lakes and cloud. You might need cloud servers just because of the amount of data involved, but not really for the actual process. So it's very tempting, shiny, nice objects, especially with a lot of startups. They do get a lot of funding, but a common mistake that they make is they think that they have enough funding. There is nothing like enough funding, right? There's always going to be something where you haven't planned for and that cost needs to be accounted for. So buying the first big, shiny, bright thing that everybody is saying is the perfect answer, well, there's so much noise right now, like Ariana said earlier. You're going to end up buying the wrong thing and then having buyer's remorse, which, if it is only limited to remorse, is not a big deal, but it could cost you millions of dollars for an investment that didn't pay off. Or worse, it took the money, your opportunity cost of having sunk that money in something would be much higher than you anticipate, and it wouldn't yield the results you anticipate. So once you have an idea of what your company system looks like, what kind of data you have, make sure there are no silos. Are those people talking to each other? Or are you making sure that, oh yeah, the marketing team has no idea how finance works, and the finance team has no idea what the organization is doing? Or my favorite, HR people they're just there because that's a compliance issue, instead of understanding how valuable HR can be in making these communications meaningful by just some basic training that is given to the employees, right? The reason I use HR is that it's not just their job to train, but it's their job to make sure that the flow of the company remains intact. But most of us do not realize how to maximize that potential, right? We always go, oh, well, they're the ones who send the W-2s and warnings when I misbehave. It goes way beyond that, right? So are we sure that as a company, we are using all our resources that we currently have in the optimal manner? Asking that question can yield some very surprising answers, right? So things that AI can help with, it can help with automation and efficiency. There can be a partial implementation that can take place. You might only need to start focusing on portions of your business rather than being like, you know what, we're going to just stop all production for a year while we figure this out. No, that's not going to be the way to work. Similarly, if you do everything in silos only without having a grand strategy behind it, you're going to end up with basically things that don't talk to each other. It's like giving one person a cell phone and giving another person a radio transmitter. There's no way they're going to be able to communicate, right? So we want to make sure that whatever we implement it allows for that communication. And this is a big one. How do you think people in the company, now I know that a lot of you are in consulting yourselves, so this is something that you might want to consider when you talk with your clients. Have they really taken into account how any AI changes will affect their leadership teams, their employees, and their clients? Is this
It could put them out of a job potentially. I'm not saying like the reality of it is, can AI take over some of the roles, because the C-levels and board of directors all process oriented people. Well, in any business, how do you grow? How do you scale? How do you adapt to let's say, like to your point, because this is your expertise when it comes to AI, right? This is where you understand the whole data analytics and the backing behind it, based on market trends and where we're going today. Because now you have tools and resources at your tips. I think the emotions are AI. It's, oh my God, I'm scared of it. Well, have you play around with it? Have you reached out to Kruti to guide you and give you the expertise, because she comes from that background and is an expert to maybe get your business where it needs to be? Again, this is just sharing you my 2 cents.
Two things, just listening, kind of going through, and I think there's 2 things we miss, and I know better, but it just kind of came to my light. One of the things that makes it challenging, because number one, the world is so fast, the technology is changing so fast, right? But you have your younger kids be able to adopt, like you said, your 11-year-old gave you the perfect answer, right? So point being is, when you talk about these things, or when you're talking about changes in the business, get the older folks and the younger folks in a room and combine it together and then do something, right? That's when you're going to get it right. And
Love it.
because technology, everybody thinks, well, technology is going to fix everything. Well, no, it's not. People, at the end of the day, it's still the people. It's still the people business. Don't
Always the people, right? Like that's the biggest thing. You sell who you are.
Right.
If you cannot be authentic, you're not going to sell anything that can survive.
Yeah.
Right.
If you're not passionate about it, like if you're genuinely not passionate about what you do, are you in something because you need to make $1, pay your bills? Okay, fine. Yes, that's human nature. We all have bills. It is what it is, right? But it's actually, no, I don't even like that line. Let me take it back. You got to follow a path of your success, right? In order to get there, then you adapt, especially with what Kruti's showing us and what she does, and to get a business to success. Because why not use the tools that are out there that are not going to cost you like $100,000 prescription subscription to an AI-based tool when the product is not even 50% in production. They're just selling you because they need to woo the investor. And it just, and again,
Yeah.
not to offend anybody on this call, but it irks my nerves with how much money these companies are getting. I said it earlier, where we're small trying to genuinely want to help executives and business owners, maybe a coach here and there, but in reality, trying to get them to the level of success. And sometimes it takes a consulting, because consultants are trusted more, vendors are trusted more than internal employees. And this is the truth. I hope everybody agrees.
Yeah, that's been my experience. I've been working as a consultant for a while, and you have a certain immediate confidence from being the shiny new expensive thing, and to a large extent, their approach is to buy the sellers, is to pick someone who just from their aura seems confident, seems to know what they're doing. But that doesn't last forever. At some point, you have to bring the goods. And ultimately, a sort of aphorism that I think is helpful in this conversation is that. And there's actually a funny meme about this on Twitter. It showed two women looking at frying pans, and one woman is kind of testing it out, seeing what it would be like to cook with it. And another woman is going like this, and like this. And
Because her husband never listens.
Possibly. But the point of it is that that meme is that people don't buy products, they buy solutions, right? Like there's probably better things you could use to hit someone, but this works. It's a solution. It doesn't have to be perfect. And so I think that's kind of the underlying philosophy with how we approach AI as a service or as a product. It has to be solving real world problems. And there is real fear about it, certainly influencing the job market. It's already affecting hiring. I know companies that, they have a plan to hire 20 people. With ChatGPT, you're seeing it 10x their salespeople. They say, okay, we only need to hire 10. So the market's already shifting because of it. And what I'm seeing with technology is if there are two applicants, software developers or a growth hacker or marketing person, whatever it is, and one of the resumes has AI in it and the other doesn't, that one gets thrown out. That's what they want to see. They want to see that expertise across all fields. So I'm telling everyone, update your resumes. But at the same time, there's still a lot of growth potential as well. There's a lot of hiring that's going to go into the sector, a lot of new markets, a lot of new product potential. That happens to be my space. I have an AI startup that I'm working with now. And I can say confidently, thanks to all the kind of FOMO in the space and all the money going into the space, a lot of it's going to be wasted and it's just going to be fads and buzzwords, but a lot of it will also go to really transformative, interesting things. And if we manage it well, it could be great for the whole industry and for society.
Yeah. And to your point, Jonathan, you just hit the nail. You said you're part of an AI, and the truth is, and especially what Dr. Kruti is talking about, is where to solve problems, not to just basically woe investors. And it tweets your home to say, okay, well, you're building something to genuinely solve problems. I mean, I'm not kidding you. I've been messing around with AI for a while now, and I didn't realize the GPTs where you can get an AI coder, or you can get an AI BDR, literally, it will tell you how to code for something. You could basically start your own little startup. Not to say that that's out, but it's just insane with the things that you can do.
We're past the kind of crazy phase of 2023, and people have found some of the limitations. I'm sure you all know the story about the lawyer who got caught using ChatGPT. The judge found that the precedents set in his documentation were all fake, because ChatGPT has this bad habit of very confidently lying and hallucinating and making stuff up. Well, so we've realized some of the limitations, but there's still a lot of opportunity if we adjust it and train it properly.
Yeah, no, and then to your point, last night I met up with the ex-manager when I was when I left corporate world a while ago, and he was telling me now, because everybody's remote, he's like, so when he talks to the, let's say, the employees that work under him on the phone, it's a very different conversation when he gets a response via email. And obviously people are using ChatGPT.
Sure.
I mean, tweets are again, you do what you got to do. There's nothing bad or wrong about it.
Actually, that is something, that observation, Ranveer, and I
know it was crazy. Sorry.
No, because that is what that business owner that you talk with is not capitalizing on. He's taking it simply as, oh my God, why do they sound different on phone and email? Holy cow, if they sound amazing on email, use their email skills. Who cares if it's ChatGPT?
I know.
That is where my question, my answer to what is artificial intelligence, and for those of you who are Trekkies will get it, it's data.
Mm.
Right?
I like to use a slightly different way when I do my speaking engagements. As you know, Kriti, I've been in the AI field for many years,
Yes.
almost 30 years now. You know, data is the new oil is what they've been saying for the last 20 years.
Yes.
And I like to call AI as the refinery
Yeah.
that helps use the oil effectively and separate the wheat from the chaff, right? So,
Oh, I love it. And you know what?
yeah,
The side effect of all of that is going to be kerosene, and someone's going to figure out how to use it.
exactly.
There you go.
And the other thing I wanted to just add is that AI, in of itself, is of little use if you have a bad process or a bad business or a bad planning, right?
Right.
AI can help you scale a problem, a solution from, you know, a one-off to 100x or
Mhm.
1000x. And that's the way you need to kind of use it is to see how you can take you know, the AI algorithms or the tools and see how you can scale something that is a one-off to 1000x.
Love it.
And it's not a bad thing to
No, not at
put
all.
as a,
No,
as a
no.
reference guide,
And
right?
that's
But
actually,
some, go ahead, sorry.
no, it's okay. I was just going to say that's actually where the next slide goes. It's like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. All right.
For elephant.
So try to achieve automation in the easiest way first, right? You have an employee who is really good at writing emails, but sucks on phone calls. Take them off of some phone calls. Make them write emails, right? Plan a strategy that spans across quarters. Not everything has to be done immediately. Things can be done in steps. And if you have a strategy, it allows you to take those steps meaningfully. If you don't have a strategy, then you're just playing roulette and hoping that something sticks, right? And implementation and monitoring any and all changes in terms of the data impact it has, that is key, right? It's not just a question of asking, like the example we used earlier about a salesperson who used to make 200 calls a day now has to find a different strategy. Well, what is that new strategy? Is that new strategy working for them? Is it in line with what their passion is? Because here's the thing, if you force something down your employee's throat and it is not a part of their own vision, you're not going to get the results. And a lot of companies are realizing this as they start requiring people to come back to office, and they're learning that some of their best and brightest minds are looking for other opportunities. And part of it is you cannot shove change down someone's throat. You have to let them embrace it as organically as possible. So there are two ways that all of these things can be done. And since a lot of you in this room are also consultants, I'm hoping that this helps you to find a space for yourself as well in the context of your clients. But a business can do a self-led transformation. They can coordinate with their leadership team, identify appropriate solutions, because I guarantee you, like Ketan said, if you get young and old and experienced and inexperienced people in one room and let them talk, they can pretty much solve the problem that you are struggling to solve on your own. And the key thing to remember is adjust your policies. If you're on the board, if you're in the C-suite, make sure your company policies are reflective of what you are trying to achieve in your vision, rather than being stuck because somebody wrote that on a piece of paper in 1980 and it hasn't been updated since then. And the other option is hiring experts to lead. And again, like I said, this, for a lot of you who are in the same space as I am, consulting, small business, encourage businesses, clients to think about hiring business advisors or coaches that can help either themselves as a business, or coaches that can be for the C-suite, or coaches for people who are in teams, training them for what they need to do. You can't bring in a data team and tell them, well, you know, you do your coding and you get this done. They need to know what the vision is. If they know, they will have the insights to be able to tell you, you know what, you're looking at the return on advertising, but we are advertising in the wrong place. So the returns matter less than what we are doing. Now, that is an insight that only somebody who is actually actively working in that space is going to be able to tell you. Another thing is to hire business strategy experts and data scientists, specifically for guiding the combination of data, culminating it all in one place, removing silos, not having HR identify whether a customer is potentially, not HR, sorry, I meant marketing, but where a customer is male or female. And I'm just using this as a very broad example on the one hand, and then finance department is looking at the income levels of the customers, and it's like, did you think that you could get this in one place? Because now you have both the information that you need to sell your product more effectively, but you can't do this because it's all siloed, right? And my favorite, and of course that's like a total pitch, but fractional executives. For transformation, you don't need a full-time person, one person who can do everything. We live in a world where there are more and more people who have more and more specific expertise, but you need a Swiss Army knife. And so what most people and most companies try to do is to hire somebody who looks like a Swiss Army knife, can do multiple things, instead of considering, hey, you know what? Sometimes it's a lot more reasonable to get different tools or different people who specifically target certain priorities, and they can still work together. But since they're fractional, while they're invested in your well-being, they can still give the best outcome. I know I said that I know we're running low on time, but I promise that at the end of this workshop, you'll know how to, grow revenues by 10 to 20% in 2024. So first, and this applies to all of us, individuals as well, identify specific, easy to implement AI tools that will boost your productivity. For me, it was a $120 investment in Calendly because I was going crazy with the different types of meetings I was setting. Upskill your employees. This kind of goes back to what we were discussing earlier about a lot of employees being afraid that their jobs will be replaced. Bring in your HR team. Let them identify which people have which strengths. Upskilling employees that are invested in your company is the best way to make sure that you grow by 10 to 20%, because when they're vested and when they're upskilled and when they're given the opportunity to grow, well, guess what? When they grow, you grow. Get buy-in from all the employees. We already discussed this. And use AI tools to reduce time spent on weekly, monthly, quarterly meetings. If you're just meeting to get updates from every team, maybe consider using an automated flow where the meeting might be cut down to 15 minutes, just discussing what needs to change and moving on, instead of everybody sitting and, giving specific answers to what they did or did not do. Remove judgment. The beauty about AI is remove judgment. Ketan, yes, I'm happy to email you the slides. Absolutely. If I forget, please send me an email and I'll reply. So I know last 2 minutes, but here's the thing. I'm going to make an offer for you or your clients or anybody you think could use this help, and you're welcome to be a part of that call. If you click on this link, I'm dropping it in the chat. If I can find it. It's hiding behind the I'm happy to have a 30-minute meeting with 3 people at once. Like I said, it could be you, your team, or you with your clients, to help you figure out how AI can help that client or you in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, another big thing, look around. This room is full of some pretty smart people. Feel free, I would think since everybody dropped their information, feel free to reach out to them. You never know
Yeah,
where that connection could take you.
I'll
So,
add mine.
anything else? This is it. I have 6 slides and that was it. I thought it was more than what I needed, but
This has been a wonderful discussion. Thank you, Kruti.
Very much so.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Actually, I think just the group and some of the sort of the discussion was really valuable, and I really appreciate the discussion of AI and the idea of fractional executives. I think that's an interesting idea that I'm going to probably take you up on. So the point about if someone's not good at emails, but they're good at talking or vice versa, I think makes a lot of sense to just focus on people's strengths, and it's an area that AI can help with. So as actually for our own group recently, we just secured some seed funding for our startup. So we're looking for some talent sourcing. We're looking for people to help us out. So we'll probably be in touch.
absolutely. I got a lot of amazing people I know who are in the fractional space. I'm happy to help out. But yeah, please
Cheers.
feel free to book the appointment or just email me. But I just put it there so that it's easy. It's a team link and I don't always give team links. It's just one-on-ones. But so yeah.
Cool.
Anything else? Any other takeaways that you want to share? Anything that I might have overlooked?
I really like your idea about the point of buying in from the employee's perspective, it's a great point, digital transformation. I really like that. It's one of the highlights, I would say. Thank you. Thank you so much for all that you shared. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, I would second that as well. It reminds me of, I think it's like a Sun Tzu or a Lao Tzu quote that a great leader makes the people feel like they did it themselves. And if you can make something feel like it's coming organically from people's own goals and trajectory, I think that makes sense. And another trend I've definitely noticed as a consultant with AI, I was actually at an A-Team conference in New York City last night where they had stats about this. They talked about how there's a large percentage of kind of early adopters who are now juggling multiple responsibilities. A lot of developers and contractors have multiple roles. And they're only able to do that because they're focusing on their strengths, on the things that they're really, really good at. So that fractional talent sort of use case makes a lot of sense to me. And for our own case, my own startup, we are really good at helping people identify specifically how to use AI. And we're looking for more business and growth people because that's not our area. We need people to help us, improve adoption. So that approach, I think, is very logical, and it's something we're going to be following up on.
So thank you so much. I'm just waiting to see because there's some of you who have unmuted, so I'm hoping somebody has something to say.
Well, cheers. I got to run. I have another call. Thanks a lot. Really
Thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much.